All right, welcome to Camp Okayest, powered by X2 Power. X2 Power, of course, X2 batteries available at your local Batteries Plus stores. Great conversation we had with Sean Budiak of X2 Power a couple weeks ago on the show. Get you a little insight to some cool stuff in the outdoor space that can help you with lithium battery technology. I am your host, Sean Ritter. Again, you can follow us on socials. At Camp Okayest is the simplest and easiest way to follow us. I don't know why I'm getting notifications. Apparently, I need to close out things. Hang on, it's technology. You're going to hear random weird things. It's because apparently I don't know how to work on MacBook. Anyway, joined this week by Bryce Becker on the show. Of course, Bryce, one of the great followers of the show on social. Again, at Camp OK. So make sure to follow us there. All kinds of fun, goofy randomness. I know this show is still like a fetus. It is a baby that barely can, we can't even sit up yet. We're still in the boppy situation. So we're still growing of sorts. But there will be a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline to our socials. Again, at Camp Okayest, my socials, at The Real Ritter, if you want to follow. It's a lot of kayak fishing and stuff like that. But before we really get into the show this week, and why Bryce is joining us, want to, of course, also make sure to point out that Foam Fest, don't forget, it's coming up August 31st, the Horicon Marsh Archers, if you're in the Wisconsin vicinity, wherever, of course, being a part of the Okayest Podcast Network and the guys at Okayest Hunter, putting on this awesome event with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, which is a fantastic organization that I am a huge supporter of. I know myself and Greg Tubbs, big supporters of. We've talked about all the great things that they do for hunters' access and public hunting and fishing and all that stuff. A really great organization to get involved with. There's a lot out there, and everyone's asking for your dollars and asking for your time. To me, BHA is tops. They really, really, truly are the boots on the ground and helping us continue to have access to hunting and fishing opportunities as Americans, as people. So it's really cool. I'd love to back up those organizations. In fact, Bryce, not only a follower of socials, but also I remember meeting Bryce at a BHA event. Of course, we had the winter was the icebreaker event. It was supposed to be an ice fishing tournament. There was no ice fishing that took place because it was 70 degrees, where our entire winter in Wisconsin was 2 weeks long. But we still all got together and, we had dinner and raffles and all kinds of good times together. So it was great to meet you there, Bryce.
Nice to meet you too. I was actually out fishing the same lake that tournament was supposed to be on 2 weeks before the event, and I had them all dialed. I was like, man, I'm ready. And then I got the email and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it looked like Swiss cheese on Kashnagong there we were. Oh, forget what was the country club we were at for that event. It was a great place, great space, really great event.
Kashnagong Mountains, I think.
Yes, thank you. See, my brain's all jello at this point. If it's not having to do with bass fishing at this point, my brain's kind of jello. It's like dad related duties and my tournament bass fishing. I'm completely jello to the point my wife at night will be like, when I see you just doing this on your phone, she's like, I know you're just looking at maps or you're doing something. You're on Omnia fishing and you're shopping or you're trying to figure things out. So, which by the way, speaking of that, I'm going to give a shout out to my awesome bride for the awesome new phone case I got. For Father's Day. That is a smallmouth. That is my favorite fish. That
awesome.
is my thing. That is my bread and butter. Love my smallmouths. And she saw the phone case. She's like, oh, I know how much you love smallmouth. You got to have that. So that's cool.
That's really cool.
I think the company's like Camo Skins or some company she ordered it from. I don't know. You can
sounds right. I've seen them on Instagram.
That's probably it. I'm sure she saw the ad and she's like, oh, he needs this add to cart. So shameless plug for them. If you're looking for something cool, they've got all kinds of different fish, but that smallmouth is obviously a southern smallmouth and not a northern, because any ones that I catch are a lot darker, more brown, and the black and stripes are far more predominant, we'll say.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you follow the show and have watched it all, by the way, yes, we're a YouTube stream. We're on there. You can watch us on there. If you're listening on where podcasts are, obviously you can go back and watch the YouTube and get the visual aspect, but the lights are down. The lights are dim in the tackle shop and studio today. And that's because Bryce messaged me out. We get talking about, and I think it's something that every single person that has ever spent any time in the woods in the dark has experienced, especially if you're a hunter. Walking out in the woods in the darkness in the morning, there is some creepy shit. Let's just be real. There are some noises, some random things, and Bryce messages that he's got some crazy stories about some stuff that's happened. And I'm like, oh, we've got to talk about this because I think it's so relatable that any of us that have spent any time in outdoors, and I'm not saying whether you're hunting, if you've camped, like just camping in a tent, right? The noises and crap you hear, like it's probably all harmless. I'm gonna say it's all harmless, but you never know. There's that little in the back of your brain, and like we've all had a bit of fear. As much as you want to be like so masculine, like I'm tough and nothing scares me. Bullshit. There is things that have happened that have made like the hair stand on the back of your neck. You're like, what in the? Huh? I mean, like I remember a story, like legitimately, and I felt like such a. When you're gonna hear this, you're gonna laugh at this, Bryce. And I think, again, everyone's had this happen. I'm walking out the woods, walking a tree. I get to the base of the tree, then I'm gonna go climb. And
Mhm.
being at that point, I was still climbing with the hang on. Well, you still got to get out the lineman's belt and all that stuff. Well, my safety tether, someone like kind of fell out of my pouch and like was kind of hanging there. And as I was grabbing things and moving around, I went to like turn my body to the base of the tree. And as you turn, what happens? Like everything moves with you, right? That
Yep.
rope just like moved just enough and moved the leaves right next to me. I jumped like a cat that saw a cucumber and turned. Like, it's just instincts. But I was like, "Ha!" I didn't yell, but like mentally I
Well, that's
was doing
hilarious.
that. And I was like, okay, it was just my rope.
I've had
Every
similar experiences with grouse.
dude. I tell everybody all the time, grouse are the animal that they will sit and wait, and they will not decide to take off until you merely step on them. And at
Yep.
that point, you can't do anything but shit your pants and try and figure out what is happening in life. And anyone that's
Yeah.
walked through the woods and encountered a grouse, you know exactly the feeling that I'm
It's
describing.
terrifying.
Oh my gosh.
It's
That is,
dark. It's 4 in the morning. Next thing you know,
oh yeah. And I've even had like, an area piece of public that I frequent a lot. There's a couple different ways into it, but one of the ways you can go and you can go across kind of a tall, it's a CRP field, essentially.
okay.
You know, so you got stuff, it's like, about as high when you're walking, about as high as like, middle of your cheeks, eyes, whatever. And you're walking through this like little game path, essentially. You
Mhm.
get at 3 o'clock in the morning, like the random little Tweety bird that decides to like cross the path or take off when you get next to it. Same thing. You're like, all right, just focus, just keep moving forward. And a lot of times I've gotten to the point of walking through that CRP with like no lights on. The moon is light enough, and you could
Yeah.
go on and argue the whole was light scare animals and red light versus that's for a whole nother topic conversation. So I've tried to kind of just go no light when I can. But there's been times where I've been getting on there. I'm like, forget it, lights on. Forget it. I'm just not gonna startle myself anymore. I'd rather have the birds take off knowing I'm coming than wait till I'm on top of them and take off and just absolutely make me soil my drawers. Because
Oh, exactly.
that's not so fun. So let's get a quick little backstory, Bryce. Like, how young did you get into hunting, fishing? What do you prefer, hunting, fishing? Just kind of more
Um,
about yourself.
so I was fishing ever since I could hold a fishing rod in my hand. I was raised in a boat. We've got pictures of me in a bassinet underneath the front deck of a boat where my grandpa's in the back catching walleyes. So I grew up in a boat in a fishing and hunting family. I've actually got like deer heads behind me over here and stuff like that. I started hunting when I was around 11, and I really got into bow hunting because I was always watched like Tim Wells and stuff like that, and I was
Yep.
like, oh man, bow hunting seems to be really cool. So my grandpa got me a 30 pound. It was a Browning. It was a Browning compound bow, and for the longest time I'd shoot with that thing, even though at the time we didn't know anything about bows. So the peep sight was completely unaligned. I was just instinct aiming like the thing was a recurve.
I was just gonna say you were basically just longbowing it.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, and eventually I realized I have nowhere to deer hunt. I've never scouted. I don't know the first thing about it. So before I go out, gung ho bow hunting, I should probably go up to gun camp. So lo and behold, I think I was like 15 when I went up to my first gun deer camp, and that's up in the Black River State Forest. We've had a deer camp in that area since the 60s, camping on public land for the entire 9-day gun deer season.
That's so cool. So cool.
Yeah,
Like that's a tradition that I think is like straight up just it's dying. I'll be real. Like I think
it is.
it's not a thing that a lot of people do. And I know I've talked about it on this show. I think it was even the first one when Eric and I were talking about things and that like I didn't grow up with that. Like my family, there was some deer hunting, when I was real little. But at the time, I got to be like 6. Like it really wasn't a thing anymore. So I didn't have that culture, that background. A lot of people do when it comes to hunting, and that's why I'm the adult
Yeah.
onset bow hunter. So like I love when I hear that people have been doing it forever like that, and the fact that they would like people that still do it. It's even more impressive to me.
Oh, we take 2 campers, like, to pull behind campers, park them into a little hole in the woods. We have a generator. We have no power hookups. We have no bathroom, nothing. We are just roughing it in the woods for the entire 9-day gun deer season.
The
We
smells.
go, yeah, yeah. Thankfully, there's a county park, so we get 1 shower. But we've been doing it since the '60s, and I actually quit my last job because they wouldn't give me off for the 2 week for the deer season. So I was like, okay, I I, I can't miss this. It's a
Oh,
very, very strong family tradition that I plan to continue.
I absolutely, absolutely love that. And you know what? There'll always be another job. There'll
Oh yeah,
always be another job. Like I have been the person that has really taken to in the last really since 2020. It has changed my mindset of a lot of things. Spent a lot of times in we'll just call it a corporate world and doing, the safe thing, having that career. And then decided like, you know what? I'm tired of doing this like this. I'm tired of living the stress. So like I don't want to like live to work. There's not
yeah.
work to live. I want to do things I enjoy and talk about things I enjoy. And, that's how I find myself now, long story short, right here of
Yeah.
doing this. And so,
Oh,
dude,
and
there'll always be another job. So that ever happens again, there'll always be another job.
oh, exactly. And what really made me take a step back and realize that is my first year. I know this was just Father's Day. Excuse me. So this kind of connects to that. My grandfather's the one who got me into deer hunting. And on my first year up there, he went into AFib on his way to pick me up.
Oh
So
my
we were
God.
meeting at a quick trip. So he is having heart palpitations. He's having issues. He almost died. I had to carry him into the quick trip. But because he wanted me to experience this Wisconsin gun deer camp, he pushed through it. I don't know what he did, how he got himself magically better, but the entire time I was just thinking, I'm deer hunting with grandpa, and he put himself through hell just so I could experience that.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
it's
is. And did everything turn out okay for
oh
grandpa?
yeah, he's fine. He's fine. He's in there watching MASH right now.
I
There's something.
love it. Oh my God. That's still like, man, the commitment. That is insane to me.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
well, I love it. Obviously, born and bred. You're from Wisconsin, right?
yeah. I'm from the Waukesha area, Waukesha, Oconomowoc area.
Okay. All right. I feel like the common theme we all tend to intertwine here in the Waukesha area. I know there's people from other parts of the country that watch and take part in the show. We
Oh
do
yeah.
live in other places. We travel other places, but a lot of us tend to be
I
Wisconsin
travel
based.
throughout the state hunting, fishing. I go up to the Northwoods, walleye fishing, muskie fishing, and all that. So,
What's your fish of species? What's your favorite to chase?
oh man, walleyes, 100% walleyes and muskies.
Okay.
I just spent last weekend up at Petenwell Flowage, and I caught a muskie and a 25-inch walleye, and I lost what I'm assuming was about a 28-inch walleye at the boat, which really stung.
Yeah, that's a bummer. 27 and 3/4 is my biggest walleye ever. I've always been pushing for 30, just never got to it. I
Yeah.
guess I don't fish them enough anymore now that I've, really I go full on bass fishing, and well, that's for another story another time.
Oh yeah.
You can follow my other social for all of the bass fishing stuff, but we're here to talk about creepy crap in the woods because
I've heard a lot of stuff on that state forest.
like I said, any of us, whether we've camped or been out in the woods on a hike or hunting, fishing, it doesn't matter. I'm guaranteeing we've all encountered something in the woods. So I've told one of my stupid at the base of a tree stories that scared myself. What is, I don't want I don't want like the scariest or the weirdest thing you've encountered. I want you to save that, Bryce. We'll get
Okay.
to that. But
Okay.
I know you got a couple stories. And
I
I've got
do.
another one. I'm thinking of something that I found in the woods and I still don't know what the hell it was. So I'll get to that. But I want to hear one of these crazy backwoods, interesting things that you found in the
One of
woods
these
story.
state forest stories.
Yeah, because you know what? There's things that go thump in the night. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll start with the one. So where I hunt, there's a lot of like old logging roads that were cut, and we usually use those to navigate. So you go 500 yards in, you cut to your left. There's a long logging road there. Follow it all the way down. There'll be a spot right there for you. I'm like, okay. So I'm walking in, and there's snow on the ground. It was one of those winters where we got a ton of snow during the Wisconsin gun deer season, and I remember distinctively there was no prints on the snow on the way in. And I get to the spot, I sit down, and I just have this eerie feeling that something is watching me. And I'm looking around, I can't see anything. And then I start hearing like rustling next to me and stuff like that, something crunching in the snow. My first instinct is a deer. So I look around, I'm looking around. I still can't see anything. It is early in the morning. I don't even know if the sun's starting to creep up yet. But in my mind, it's a deer coming in because it's this logging road path, and they follow these logging roads religiously. I think it was opening day. On my opening day, first light, I'm gonna fill a tag. Let's go. Well, then when the light starts coming up over the trees, just first light. Let's just say that. I look over to my left, and I swear I can see something peeking out from the bushes, just staring right at me. So I pull up my rifle, and I'm like, "What is that?" All I see is two eyes just staring right back at me. I'm like, don't like that. So I pick up. I slowly start walking back. While facing whatever this animal is that's just staring in this bush, and it's substantially sized. It is
Right,
not a small animal. No, I was not turning my back to whatever this was. I mean, I had a 30-30 in my hand, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna walk out of these woods. My uncle's 100 yards this way. I'll go by him. Well, as I'm crossing back over my old path where I went in this morning, I see wolf tracks intersecting with my tracks. And they loop. I looked, and they looped around where I was sitting, and we're going right to that bush. So that entire time, I was staring face to face with the wolf, who was staring right back at me.
Wow. That's one creature that I've never actually encountered naturally. Like, I've seen a ton of coyotes.
Yeah.
I've seen wolverines, seen badgers. I've seen a bobcat, but
Those
never
are cool.
gorgeous animals. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Bobcats are some of the most beautiful creatures. They are mean as hell, and just they're pretty. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say it. They are
They're
pretty as
gorgeous.
can be.
I think we have a picture of one crossing the railroad tracks up where I hunt, and we got a picture of it, just its coat shining in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, I love that. One of the stories I was thinking of too, I remember being, I don't know how old I was. My dad and I, we were walking around. I think we were small game hunting. We got in kind of like an opening in a field, and I still don't know what the hell this was, but we get out there, and there's this random spot where it almost looks like a nest of sorts, and there's what looks like this giant freaking egg laying there. Like a giant like dinosaur. Like, it looks like a giant egg, legit. Like, it is like rugby ball shaped. And I remember like my dad kind of like kicks it to move it, and like it just disintegrates as like it's jelly.
Ew.
Right. Weird damn thing. I vividly remember this, and I have no clue what it was still to this day. Was it some sort of
Gross.
fungus? Like, I don't know, but that's one of those weird things that I found and encountered. I remember it was like kicked me. It was like, oh, it's
What if it was one of those puffball mushrooms?
yeah, but like the fact that it was like jelly, like gel, and the and exactly, I'd think like a puffball, but
Yeah.
to me, a
Those don't
puffball
turn
is
into
more like,
jelly.
remember in gym class, like middle school, high school gym class, those like
Yeah.
volleyballs. To me, that's a puffball mushroom.
Yeah, it's a
Reminds me
puffball.
exactly of those like puffy volleyballs. This
Yep.
wasn't quite that. It was more like actual oblong, like egg shape too.
Oh, that's weird.
Weird crap. It was somewhere in Marinette County. Random weird.
That is weird.
But I mean, yeah, all the noises and things. I've had plenty of those encounters. I mean, everyone I think has been walking out and you see the two eyeballs or three eyeballs staring at you in the middle of the night, especially if you got a headlamp on. It
Oh yeah.
turns and there's those eyeballs just staring at you. I don't care who you are. There's a bit of an eerie of like, it's just weird. Something staring at me. Most of the time, it's always a doe, but still, like
Yeah,
in
or
the
a
back of your
possum.
mind, it's that like, is that? Nah, it can't be. And
Yeah.
I think I told a story in this show or somewhere else. I know I talked about it of like one of my really great hunts this year in the tree bow hunting when like I barely got to the top of the tree. And this is again, this is before I moved to the doing the whole saddle situation, so I was still in the hang on. I just get it up and I've got my backpack bag and my bow at the bottom of the tree, and I'm about to pull them up because I'm gonna get up, get set up, and then I pull them up, and I'm ready to hunt for the day. My backpack, bow are laying there, and I'm just about to start pulling them up, and a
Mhm.
big buck comes running down the ridge, just full tilt right at me, and legitimately comes directly under my tree and stops under the tree, like feet from my bow and backpack. Has no clue it's there. I'm hugging the tree to like not make a move, not do anything, not tip anything. And it's pure darkness, but just light enough. Like the moon was just light enough that I could see the rack on this deer and I could see it directly below me. And I
Oh
don't care
man.
who you are in the darkness and that close. There's a bit of a pucker factor that you're
Yeah.
like, holy crap.
Well, I don't know if you know this. I ground hunt strictly
Okay.
archery.
I
Um,
our good friend Matt Shrine, part of Okayest Fisher, he is a strictly ground hunt person too.
yeah, yeah. So this buck that I took this year, he was an 8 pointer. I think I shot him on the ground at like 4 yards.
Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah.
How? Like, I mean, that's impressive.
Um, I drew my compound back like it was a recurve. You know, you draw a recurve super fast.
Yep.
I kind of just guesstimated where my pin would go. It went perfectly right behind his shoulder. I drew back, hit the release as soon as I was at full draw. Heard his lungs pop, and I was just like, okay. I was sitting down for like 15 minutes, had an 8 point buck come in at 4 yards.
That is just insane to me. That's so cool and amazing. Like, that's the
But yeah,
thing about ground hunting that is, and eventually I think I'll do more of it. I've done some kind of spot and stalk and trying to like it's
yeah,
more to me of like scouting in, like I'll be ready and kind of the slow walk and stalking through while you're kind of
mhm,
scouting through a new area, but never to just like straight sit on the ground. I think since I was, first hunting at 16 years old, the
yeah.
2 years I did before I took my long break from any sort of deer hunting.
I think what
Um,
made me do it or start doing it more is we'd only go up bow hunting, or we recently started bow hunting public land. My entire hunting group did, and we'd go up like Friday, and we'd leave on a Sunday. So that leaves like a day and a half to hunt.
okay.
Well, you have a day and a half to hunt. You don't want to go in there. Okay, I got to find a tree. I got to find this. I got to find this. So I just walk in there, find fresh sign, and I'd set up on that sign. Just sit on the ground.
Not a bad way to go about things. That's
No.
always a good way to go. I mean, I tried to do the find fresh sign to get up at a tree, but yeah, I mean, you're I think open to so many more possibilities on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it was actually that same hunt. Now I think back to it. That one I mentioned when I first got to the tree and the buck came down below me. It was like the rut was on. Like that was the day where it was on. And
Yeah.
I had encountered a couple of bucks that had just been running through, and there was like this one. So where I
Hmm.
was, I'll kind of set the stage of I was on what I call the oak flat. There's kind of this big flat
Okay.
with a bunch of oak trees. So there's a big ridge, and it leads down this hill to this flat. Well, then, like on the other side of the flat is another ridge that drops down. So like it's just straight drop, flat, straight drop. So, but this flat part is full of a bunch of oak trees and stuff. So that second ridge that leads down to the farthest part, for some reason they kind of were running right on that, and I was like right between the two, and I got to the point where I was like, I'm kind of out of position here. And if they want to keep using that, it might be easier for me to just get on the ground. And there was a set of kind of like a couple of downfalls that I could really like creep back into the corner of it. And I think for my last hour of that hunt, I finally just said, hell with it. I just got out of the tree and I went down there. And I only remember that because it was the first time. And don't ever do this. No one should ever do this. I climbed down the tree without my safety harness on. And then obviously climbed up the tree without my safety
Oh
harness
my
on.
goodness.
I would never do that. Would never say to do it, but I was just like, I have to do this now. I got to go in a hurry, and I just straight went down. I mean, I had my
Oh, okay.
lineman's belt on, just quick through the lineman's belt, but I didn't like, you know, the whole fact of like being untethered and stepping down and then throwing lime in, that was just, it was not a smart maneuver on my part. I wouldn't do it again, which is where I love saddle. Like you're always connected at all times. There's none of that like half in between disc.
Yeah.
You're always connected. But yeah, that's the only reason I remember it, because I was like, okay, this is sketch, but I got to go now. I don't have time to screw around with things. This has to be done now, because I have a feeling if I start going down, something's going to come through. And I remember doing it, and I didn't end up seeing anything the rest of the time. But that was probably like my only experience with ground hunting in the last quite a few years, other than turkey hunting. With turkey hunting, I'm always on the ground. And again, I haven't done that in 3 years now, because turkey hunting involves my bass season. But we all have to make choices. We have life and jobs and families and all that, and we have to make choices.
Can't make time for it all.
All right, so let's hear some more of these crazy wood stories, other than wolves staring at us in the woods and crazy puffballs and things we don't know about.
I'm trying to think. I'm going to save the worst one for last. There was this, actually right here in literally the woods that's right behind my phone, because I hunt. I got land that borders up to 69 acres or 69 or 70 acres of Waukesha County Land Conservancy. So I'm able to hunt my property, but I got permission to track deer that go on the conservancy. So I was out one morning, and the conservants are on my land, and the conservancy consists of mostly swamp. So I get all these deer that filter in, trying to get out of the swamp or whatever. And I'm walking in the dark, getting to my spot, and I'm within ear distance of the swamp, so I can hear if something big or something's going on in the swamp. And all I heard was this ear-piercing screech and splashing water. And I went back later that day, or I went back there to just go figure out what this was. And I'm looking around, and the only thing I can see is a giant circle, like 15 feet wide, just circumradius of just matted down cattails. And there's just blood everywhere and hair. Now, what I'm assuming happened is a coyote grabbed a fawn or a small doe, and that's what I was hearing.
That's my thought.
But you want to talk about a bone-chilling thing to hear at 4 a.m? That is that's up there.
Yeah, that had to have been what that was. But yeah, that would be a very, very creepy sound.
Yeah. Just woke up, still rubbing the sleep out of my eyes, just, all right, I'm going to sit here, nod off a little bit before the sun comes up, and then just, bam. I was like, not what I wanted.
Well, and even more creepy to me is the fact that you're on the ground. Like, I'm sorry, it is, like, this is the other part that I will fully admit, and you can bash me and say that it's not manly or whatever, I don't care, take the man card. But there's a certain amount of when I step onto my first set of steps and I'm no longer standing on the ground, I for some reason automatically feel safer.
Yeah, there's been,
like, it's not that I ever don't feel safe, but there's always like that heightened awareness, we'll call it, right? Like anyone that walks in the woods in the darkness is just a bit of a different awareness, right? The minute I get up on my first step, good to go. Like to the point where even when I've pretty much got it where I will only flip on my headlamp when I'm like in the woods, so to speak. It's canopy and it's in woods and it's a little dark. So I'll put on just to navigate around to get it. And as soon as I get to my tree, I get, just to make sure I'm set up and doing quiet. I would rather use and have light be out there versus making a ton of noise. That's kind of my thought. It's always a give and take. Anything is a give and take. So I'd rather the light on to see what I'm doing and still be quiet. And then the minute I get up that first step, it's off. And I'll climb the rest of the way in the darkness. And it's just enough light. Like, and it's muscle memory, what you're doing to get yourself up. But so the fact that you're sitting on the ground and this is happening, that's some scary stuff, man.
It adds a new level to it, especially when I'm up in Black River, where there's wolves, obviously from my story earlier. We have bears, we have bobcats, we've got all these other critters. And when I first started doing it, my grandfather highly advised against it. He's like, no, you got to go put a tree stand. You don't know what you're going to run into in the dark. I'm just like, I don't have time. I'd rather kill a deer. Let that stuff, happen. I got a bow. I got my hunting knife. Whatever. I'll go out there. You'll hear me scream if something happens.
Have you had that thought before though, in walking the woods and you have that you don't know, and you just got a bow and you're like, so what do I do? Do I try and knock an arrow and like draw and pull, or do I just pull an arrow out, use an arrow like a shiv essentially,
Yeah,
and try and use that as like a spear? Like what? Like I guarantee we've all had that thought because I have done it, and I've thought to myself, I feel like I'm just, if worse can worse, I can just pull one of the arrows out of the quiver, and I've at least got an arrow. Like I will jab it into something.
Yeah.
Right.
That thought's crossed my mind. And it does at least once to every hunt. The first hunt of the season where I'm just like, okay, got to get back into doing this. I usually carry, I always have a knife on my belt. That's just something my grandpa always taught me. Is my first year up at gun deer camp, he gave me this big old timer knife and this beautiful leather sheath. He said this was one of my first hunting knives. Here it's yours now. So I now always carry a knife on my belt. So worst comes to worst. But like you said, my first resort is the arrow, like on guard, trying to sword fight a bear or something like that.
Right. And like let's be real, if it's a bear, the bear is going to beat our random little carbon crappy arrow. But if it makes us feel slightly better, let's just roll with that thought. And I'm glad to know that I'm not the only person that's had that exact same thought. I've often thought others do, but I've never like publicly said it. So thank you, Bryce, for backing me up that others have the thought that I, worst come to worst, I'm grabbing that arrow. Let's see, I think I got one in reach here. Getting you. Anyway.
Yep. Well, he's gonna make it mad.
No kidding. Depending on what it is, yeah. Just make it mad.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as creatures go, I'm trying to think of like my craziest creature encounter. That we're on that topic. I guess scariest was I had an owl almost like run into me in a tree.
I got a story about that from my uncle.
And again, it's that you're getting set up, and it's obviously, I'm the person that I like to be set up in my tree an hour before legal shooting light. And it's, I don't know, it's just habit. It's what I do. It's what I like to do because, again, talk about give and take. If I'm going to give up and make noise and do whatever, I'd rather do it an hour before deer might be moving through there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if there are something there and I spook it, chances are maybe something else will come through an hour later. Like I think I've legitimately seen deer spook them and 10 minutes later seen them back again. Like it is what it is. So to me, that's just always been my rule of things. It's also burned me at times when I'm out there that early set up, and then of course right directly at shooting light, someone comes walking out. But hello, that's public land. It's not my land. It's your land. It's our land. Your tag, your hunt, all that stuff. But
exactly.
Anyone used to back like, oh damn it. I think I got up here I got out of bed that early for this to happen. Oh.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I digress. Anyway, I was talking about early morning stories, and you had one, Bryce. Go ahead.
So this is not my story. This is my uncle's regarding to an owl. He was hunting this private property that's all regrowth pine, and it was getting dark, and he was in his tree stand. And this is back in the day when he was using an old Martin, real old compound bow, and he was getting that down out of his tree stand, and all of a sudden he heard a screech, and something dove right past his head. Well, you didn't hear it fly over; you heard the screech. So he's looking around like, what was that? All of a sudden he looks, and there's an owl sitting in a tree just staring at him. So he's like, okay. So he turns around, he starts walking away. He gets 15 yards. This thing dives at him again. Well, at that point, he drops his bow and he just starts booking it. This thing was following him through every single pine tree he went under. It followed him, he said, for half an hour. And it by the time he was able to sit, I think he said he hit it with his quiver. He had his quiver in his hand. For whatever reason, his bow and his quiver were separate. and he swatted at the owl, and he said he felt it hit the owl, which scared it off. But he ran in whatever direction. He was lost in the middle of these woods, his first year hunting it. And he's like, okay, I got to sleep. So he finds this culvert. And this is, I think it was October. And he was out there with like nothing. You know, he just had his camo on. He's like, okay, I'm going to sleep in this culvert. Well, all of a sudden, his buddies come hauling down the road yelling, Joe, where are you? And he pops up out of this culvert. And it turns out the owl chased them like 500 yards, 600 yards from where he was actually like supposed to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, I just had like sitting up at the tree and I heard the wings and stuff and like caught and looked and saw something flying at me. And I kind of like the duck down. And I don't think it got as close as I thought it did, but it didn't go over my head. It went in front of me, but it was creepy as hell to have something. You don't realize how big owls are until they're like full on flight right in front of you. They are huge. Big birds. I've been in the vehicle with my brother when he's hit one. With his SUV at one point. We were out, this was back when we were much younger. We were headed off to, we were going duck hunting. We were going over diver hunts in the Bay of Green Bay. And we were cutting on a county road up in Door County and kind of come around a curve. And this thing, I don't know if like it got to get up out of the ditch. I don't know if it was eating some of the ditch, went to get up. And he just clipped it with the top corner of the driver's side of the, and we both like, holy cow. It didn't really sink in till we stopped and got out. And there's just giant puff of like dirt that was all like up the windshield. It didn't crack it. It did nothing windshield, but there was just this big puff of dirt that went up and across out of the roof. And it was, I mean, at that point, funny. Yeah. Everyone was safe, you know, all that stuff. But man, those things, and I've heard people that hit turkeys,
say that
those things are like hitting they're like hitting a deer. They are dangerous.
I had a buddy who hit one in his truck. He was like, it was like a bowling ball just hit my windshield.
I had this past winter, family and I, we went off to the Dells for a two-day kind of quick little staycationist type thing. Hit the water park on the way back. So my wife, she works alongside at the office. My little guy and I met her at the office. We all got in my truck and went. So on the way back, we dropped mom off at her vehicle, and dad and the little guy we're in the truck driving back, and we're driving, and suddenly out of nowhere, a hawk came from the side of the road. It must have been going to get something and swooped down, went right past, and the same thing. I biffed that thing with it just hit my windshield, scared the bejesus out of me, but I kept it together enough to be like, holy crap, that was a bird. And then I looked in my rearview mirror, and it was like a lawn chair, just like, I swear was 200 yards back. All I saw was just, so that thing hit the windshield like a freaking ramp at the X Games. It just went. Luckily, again, no damage. Thank God, because that was my first. I was like, "Oh crap!" I'm looking, I'm waiting. I'm like, "It's got to be a crack or a dent or something." And luckily, there wasn't. But man, I bust out laughing, and I don't want it to sound like I maimed an animal, and that's funny thing, because it's not that at all. But just in the moment of like panic of holy crap that just happened, and then looking and just seeing
something drop out of the sky.
Straight out of the sky. Why I laughed is I'm thinking of the people behind me, what that scene had to have looked like.
Oh, that it'll look hilarious.
And exactly, if I were them, I would have been like, did I really witness this? Oh, yeah. So that's why I was laughing. It's not memeing a while, just laughing at the thought of like, I can't imagine people behind me that just saw that happen.
That'd be funny. That'd be pretty funny.
Oh, this has gone off the rails. We meant to talk about crazy stuff in the woods, and now we're talking about weird crap that we've hit with our vehicles.
And getting chased by an owl.
Yeah, and chased by owls. So, all right, you said you had one crazy story, Bryce.
I do.
That was the scariest at the top of the wall. Before we wrap up here and land the ship, I got to hear this story as we've had the lights dimmed for the evening. We're getting creepy. We could really dim it out here.
I'm in the garage. I can't get darker than this. So in the campsite we have a campfire that we sit around every night and just, shoot the breeze. Just like it's camp,
Camp Okayest. That's what this is.
Yep. And This happened on, I think it happened 2 years in a row, where we're sitting just around the fire shooting the breeze, and all of a sudden we heard screaming. And it's like 10:30 at night. We're in the middle of the woods, and we hear screaming. I'm just like, oh, that's not normal. And it wasn't like somebody screaming for help. It was just a female voice screaming. I was just like, I don't know what that is. I don't, whatever.
Now,
So
this is the
we kind of
middle like
the Black River State Forest.
the
Yeah,
state forest or something, right?
yeah, State
Right.
Forest. The nearest town is Hatfield, which is like half an hour away. And it's all dirt roads all around me. Nobody should be out here unless they're, spotlighting for deer, which unfortunately I've seen. Um, and we're like, okay. So we all look at each other like we all just heard that, right? So we all get up, we turn our flashlights on. Obviously, it was off in the distance. I don't know what we're planning to do with the flashlights. But 20 minutes goes by, we don't hear nothing else. We're like, okay, just something weird that happens in the woods. So we sit down, and the conversation died down a little bit. All of us are on edge. And like I said, about 20 minutes went by and we hear it again. Well, my uncle then gets really freaked out, and we go out to the railroad tracks because right behind camp is these set of railroad tracks. And if you're gonna yell back at something, you want to be out in the open. So my uncle goes out and he screams, "Hello, is there anybody out there? Does anybody need help?" Nothing. We're like, okay. So we sit out there for another half hour and we hear it again while we're out in the tracks. It is in the heart of the swamp. And we run up the railroad tracks where we are, in line with it. And we're just like, I don't know. None of us brought a gun. Do we really want to go back there? In hindsight, we probably should have bought a gun. But we run up to the railroad tracks where we heard it, and we don't see lights. We don't hear anything. So we sit out there for about 45 minutes, and I think at that time it was 1 a.m. And we're like, okay, we haven't heard nothing. So we start going back to camp, and we start, we were all on edge. So we're like, okay, all of us have pistols. In Wisconsin, it's legal for somebody under 21 to carry a pistol so long as you're deer hunting. So I load up, we load up
Right.
all the guns, lock the camper door, which we never do. And I wake up at like 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. So I get out of the camper and I go do my business. I'm walking back to the camper and I hear it again. And it is about 50 yards outside of our camp. So I climb back into the trailer, wake everybody up, and we're all ready. So we all grab our brightest flashlights and we go walking through this woods. We find nothing. No footprints, no broken tree limbs, nothing. And this is 6 people. I'm the youngest. Everybody else has been up at this camp since the 60s. They know these woods like the back of their hands. And there was not a footprint nor hair in those woods 50 yards behind our camp.
And hearing all those noises, and for how many
Mm-hmm.
hours on end?
Uh-huh. Now that
And it was
happened.
the same noise, right? It was the same noise.
Same scream. Yep. Same scream.
Man, I'm drawn.
It's one of those things that's
right. I'm going
unexplainable.
there's got to be some sort of animal, I guess, that's.
If you
It almost has to be some sort of animal makes that
if
noise.
you would have heard it, it sounded like a woman shrieking.
Man.
And it's I know rabbits.
All right, I'm like, yeah, let's say, yeah, I'm like, I'm goosebumpy. That's insane.
Rabbits I know will sound like a baby when they're in distress, but I don't know of any animal that sounds like a woman shrieking. And then I wake up at like 3 a.m. and it's right outside our camp. 2 hours after all of us went to bed, or an hour and a half, I guess.
And you were out in the woods with it, how far away? And then it came to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm out. Hard pass. You guys still hunt at the same camp, Bryce, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. We actually had
Holy
similar. We had similar instances happen the year before as well, but it was just one scream.
I think at this point I would be like, time to find a new camp. I don't know. I don't know that I could do it, man. I don't know
It's
that I could do that. That is insane.
yeah. And then this year we heard it sounded like an owl, but it was different. It didn't sound right. You know what I mean? Like, and that was this year. My uncle was giving me crap, like, "Oh, the owl man's gonna come get you." I'm just like, I know the sound of an owl, and usually, one, they don't make a noise during the day. The first time we heard it, it was like 2 o'clock, and then the next time we heard it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just like, well, it sounds a little off pitch from what an owl would be. It sounded like somebody trying to imitate an owl, but why somebody would be by our camp at 1 in the morning trying to imitate an owl is beyond me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've got a
Yeah.
very interesting camp, Bryce. I'm just going to leave it at that. You've got a very interesting camp. I feel there needs to be, what was that show? Was it Ghost Hunters or something? Yeah, Ghost Hunters, I think it was. They need to come out and spend a deer camp with y'all. There's something going on there. Something's creepy. That is, that's a little out there for me, man.
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking. I didn't get much sleep that night. I
Or
don't think
the
any of us
following
did.
nights, I would be like one eye open the entire time.
Yeah, the camper door stayed locked.
Oh my goodness. Well, man, thank you so much for coming to hang out at camp, grabbing a chair.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone wants to follow you or check you out on socials, where can they?
My outdoor page is Wisconsin Weekend Warrior on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I post a lot of hunting and fishing content. Lately, it's been a lot of Lake Michigan because that's what I've been doing the most. But I do it all. I hunt, I fish. So
Everything moves seasonally, man. That's what we do as people of the outdoors. We seasonally move from what it is to the next thing.
exactly.
So, well, hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for being a part of the Okayest family. Thanks for everything. I don't have a plan for next week. This is like honestly the weirdest thing. Is the first time like we're wrapping a show and I don't have next week's show or agenda planned. So happens. I'm gonna say, don't count out Greg Tubbs appearing, but I don't want to give him a third appearance. So let's just say Greg will not be a part of the show next week. But we'll have something. We'll have some fun stuff coming. I know we've got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. Some great guests that we are going to have coming up really soon. Talking about a lot of things. From, I mean, you know, we hunting, we talk fishing. It's again the part of camp is like we're not pigeonholed into one thing. This is the place where the Okayest gather to tell the Okayest stories, whether it's creepy stuff or good hunting and fishing stories. We're glad that you get to be a part of a camp. Again, don't forget to follow us on socials. It is at Camp Okayest. If you're watching the YouTube stream again, we'd love for you to give us a live show where we get to hang out and chit chat and phone calls and all that. Is if we can get to the 1,000 subscriber mark, so we can actually get the live function turned on to YouTube. So we would really appreciate that follow and tell your friends that enjoy things in the outdoors. And again, if you happen to be around Wisconsin area, don't forget Foam Fest. It's going to be a great gathering of all of the Okayest of peoples. Coming up August 31st, the horror con. I know I've talked to Eric. It sounds like Bear Archery is going to be giving away some bear bows. Some of the other sponsors
Are they doing the
that are involved
camping
in the
again this year?
I haven't heard of a camping situation because I don't remember if anyone even booked into that last year. But but you just follow Okayest Hunter and put that on Eric. I just will tell about cool things that the Okayest family has going on, and he can do all the hard questions above my pay grade, is the way I put it. So
cool.
All right, well, y'all take care. We'll catch you back here next week at camp. Thank you so much again, Bryce, and we will see you on the next one.